So you just bought a camera and you're wondering why your footage still looks really bad. The truth is, it's not necessarily an issue when it comes to your ISO, it's actually a light problem. So today actually going to show you on why cranking up your ISO is actually ruining your videos, and I'm actually going to show you a formula on how to fix that pertaining to your camera or even your phone. I'm going to show you on how we got a shot looking like this to this. So stay tuned, we'll get right to it. So first, we need to understand what noise is when it comes to your picture quality onto your camera. Think of it as if you're whispering into a microphone and you can't really hear as much when you're in post-production. When you actually go to put in a little bit more of a boost, you start to hear a lot of hissing, you start to hear a lot of distortion because you're adding a lot into what was previously recorded. It's adding a lot of it's kind of enhancing the voice so you can actually hear it a little bit more. But if you add too much, it's going to make everything sound kind of distorted and not balanced. So when it comes to your ISO, again, if you're cranking up your ISO so high when you're in a situation pertaining to a low light situation, or even if you have just limited lighting and you don't necessarily know what you're doing, that ISO is going to, if you crank it up as loud as you can, you're going to see a lot of grain, a lot of fuzziness. The picture quality is just not going to look good at all. It's best to understand on how to use the ISO properly so you can still get a clean image, but then you're not necessarily overdoing it. I did make a video on, is my professional camera, I have a Canon R7. I did make a video on how bad it is in low light, or if it's, bad at all. So I do have a video that you can watch on that to kind of give you an idea if you were to get a Canon R7 or a crop sensor camera, and it kind of gives you an idea of using the ISO in low light scenarios. But even if you don't have a Canon R7, if you just have a crop sensor camera or just a camera in general, um, understanding ISO is super important, just as using your aperture and your shutter speed. So I'm actually going to talk in three different sections in the sense of how to use the exposure triangle correctly in order to get a well light image when it comes to your cinematic videos or even when it comes to your photos. So we are going to start with the aperture, which will be the first pillar when it comes to the exposure triangle. So usually when it comes to your actual, footage looking grainy and looking washed out, it's not just because of the ISO, it's also because of your aperture. Think of your aperture essentially as, certain blades or windows or blinds. The more you actually turn the blinds, outwards to bring in the light, that's how much is going to go in the sensor through the camera lens. So the more that you crank it up, the more light's gonna try to be exposed through the lens, which is gonna show into your picture or into your picture quality. The more that you kind of bring it down or dim it down, the darker your image is gonna look, or the more shallow your image is gonna look. So a lot of people like to have blurry backgrounds, when it comes to, their image quality, and part of that is because of the actual sensor. But is also because of the lens as well. So you kind of have to balance all three in order to get the image quality that you're looking for. So when it comes to your aperture, if you have it, a lot of people use camera lenses and they have, 1.2 all the way to like f22. So for the purpose of this video, I'm actually shooting on the Canon R7 right now. And for my settings down below, I have my shutter speed at 1/50. I have my aperture at f.4, excuse me, and I have my ISO at 100. Now, for the purpose of this, reason why I have it at f4 is because I already have lighting, control lighting in the actual room, so I don't necessarily need to crank it all the way up, because if so, I'm going to look washed out. It's not going to look appealing. The quality is just going to look horrible. By me having that f4, it's more of a sweet spot. So it's not too bright, it's not too dark. Everything looks kind of clean and kind of, where it needs to be. And like I said, for my ISO, I have it at 100. Reason why I have it at 100 is because I have light around me to where I can still look good in a sense of the lighting per se, and then 100 is going to be the cleanest image, to where you're not gonna see any type of grain at all. So having the ISO at 100 and having my aperture at f4, um, it looks pretty good. And by me having the lights surrounding me, and I have a practical light behind me, I can actually be well lit pertaining to my scenario. Now, the way that how you see, my body moving and nothing looks, fuzzy or looks, out of the way, that's because I have my shutter speed at a certain measurement. So this is kind of the third pillar, or the second pillar, quote unquote, that I'm actually going to explain, is your shutter speed. Your shutter speed is super important when it comes to your motion. Any type of moving objects or subjects, or just yourself, whether it's a talking head, or if you're filming wildlife, or if you're filming sports, whatever it may be, you have to have your shutter speed at a certain um, you know setting, because if you have the wrong shutter speed pertaining to how you're filming, your footage is going to look way off, and it's just not going to look appealing to the eye. So when it comes to the shutter speed, you always want to double your frame rate. So if you are shooting at 24 frames per second, which is more of the cinematic look that a lot of people see in movies and TV shows, you want to be able to double that so it looks a little bit more appealing to the eye. So from the sensor, since I'm shooting 50th 1/50th of a second, that's going to let in light through the sensor, but then I'm balancing that out by using it at f4 for my aperture, and then I have my ISO at 100. So like I said, you want to balance things out so your image looks the way it needs to look. Let's just say if I had my shutter speed 1/50, and then I wanted to have my ISO at 100, but I wanted to kind of change up the aperture to bring in a little bit more light, so I'm a little bit more lit, I can do that. But again, depending on your lighting scenario, if you have any type of overhead lights, or if you have anything coming from your window, or wherever your light source is coming from, you just want to be careful, because you don't want to bring in too much light to where you're not looking well exposed. And again, pertaining to the image quality of your videos, you really want to be careful, like I said, when it comes to your ISO. I'll say 100 ISO up to 400 ISO is going to be more of your cleanest image that you're going to be able to get no matter what, depending on your lighting scenario. If you're in a little bit of a dark, moody type situation, and you want to bring in some light, like I said, I will crank it from at least 800 ISO up to 1600. That's usually my stopping point, usually around 1600. If you go 32 and up, it's going to look a little bit more grainy. And again, if you don't have the right lens attached to your camera to kind of balance out the lighting when it comes to the aperture, between your aperture and the ISO, then it's going to look grainy and washed out and looks bad. So you want to make sure you have a good lens, and you want to make sure that you're understanding the exposure triangle, so you can actually balance out and make your quality look good. Now also understand, don't be afraid of don't be afraid of the dark. You could also use the dark scenery to your advantage. You just have to understand how to really use the settings when it comes to your camera. So like I said, if you want to have the cleanest image, you want to make sure that you have some light around you, bright enough to where you can still use that 100 to 400 threshold. If not, you are gonna have to bump it up. You go from 800 to at least 1600. That's mainly the sweet spot if you're in a dark scenario, but still have some good lighting around you, around your subject, in order to make the image look more cinematic like this. So that's pretty much the end of this video. If this is very valuable for you and it actually helped you, go ahead and give me a like. And also comment down below on this video, and just let me know if you're having any type of issues pertaining to, well exposing your content, pertaining to, ISO and aperture and shutter speed. Just let me know in the comments, and then I can kind of give you guys some more pointers. And like I said, I do have a video that you can review and watch. It's pertaining to my camera, the Canon R7, and it's pertaining to, low light scenarios. Is it bad in low light? I give my full review, and I kind of give you a little bit more breakdown as far as how to really use your settings for this particular camera and other cameras, and actually helps you out pertaining to how far you can go when it comes to that ISO setting. So if that's something that you want to be able to watch, then I have a video that you can watch right here, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.